The first thing to go wasn't the lights, it was the sound. I remember that moment clearer than any childhood memory because there I was in the middle of the worst thunderstorm this neighborhood had seen in a decade, smug as you please, in my little fortress, stirring my latte and listening to the gentle, reassuring hum of all the technology I'd poured my soul and my retirement money into. That sound was my whole world. The hum of servers in the garage, the faint sigh of batteries doing their thing, inverters quietly turning yesterday's sunshine into this morning's espresso. Yeah, I was that guy. But suddenly all of it faded beneath a silence that wasn't just unsettling, it was wrong. It took me a second to realize what was missing: the deep, chest-thumping purr from the hospital generator out back. The one that Brenda, with a B, president of our glorious HOA, had been ranting about for weeks in one of her legendary all-caps email blasts. Now it was just gone. I froze, spoon in hand, staring into the storm. For an hour, that generator had been testing a big metal promise that at least someone in the neighborhood would be safe when the grid failed. And now I was looking at my own house lit up like Times Square on Christmas, and the entire street outside was just a row of shadowy, empty boxes, except for the hospital, which was supposed to never go dark. But it had. That's when my heart really started to pound. So I grabbed my trusty binoculars, ostensibly for bird watching, but really for keeping tabs on whose grass was too long or who had dared to hang the wrong color Christmas lights, and scanned past my Kentucky bluegrass and over the fence. St. Jude's Community Hospital sat there, a big black monolith under a bruised sky, as dead as anything could be. No emergency bay lights, no windows, not even a faint glow from an admin office. That's when my blood ran cold. Hospitals have redundancies for their redundancies. If the city grid failed, that backup generator should have fired up within seconds. But all I saw was darkness. Let me back up a sec. This wasn't the first time I'd found myself at odds with Brenda and her holy order of homeowner aesthetic. My own house was designed to be its own ecosystem, a monument to self-sufficiency. After selling my startup, I wanted out of the rat race. No golf, no classic cars, just pure technological autonomy. My garage wasn't for cars. It was my control center, stuffed with government surplus batteries and servers, running everything from the fridge to my espresso machine. The roof solar panels for days. I called it the grid, and Brenda called it an eyesore. Our feud went back years, from the wrong shade of front door to tomatoes grown illegally in porch planters. She reported my recycling bin for being excessively green, if you can believe that. So when the storm rolled in, I thought I'd have the last laugh. My house hummed along. The rest of the neighborhood went dark, and the only thing keeping me from really enjoying the moment was Brenda's latest HOA notice about unauthorized reflectivity. Yeah, apparently my solar panels were too shiny between 9:15 and 9:47 a.m. and had traumatized her petunias. You can't make this stuff up. But that night, as the storm raged and my own grid held steady, I realized something was very, very wrong. The hospital was supposed to be the exception, not the rule. People in there were depending on that generator, ventilators, incubators, maybe even a surgeon, mid-procedure. It hit me hard. If I could help, shouldn't I at least try? So against my better judgment, I called up Maria, an old friend from my IT days. She knew more about power grids than most city engineers, and I trusted her with my hypothetical questions. Of course, she saw through me in about 5 seconds flat. Jack, you can't just backfeed power into a hospital. You'll fry someone or land yourself in federal prison. But when I explained the situation and the fact that St. Jude's was dark, she paused. Okay, she said, you need pros. There's a crew called the Kilowatt Cowboys. If anyone can pull this off, it's them. That's how I ended up a half hour later welcoming two guys, Gus and Leo, straight out of a hurricane, looking like they'd just stepped off an oil rig. They didn't even blink at my garage grid, just marveled at the military-grade batteries and the customized inverter stack, like kids in a candy store. When I pointed to the dead hospital and asked, "Can we do it?" Leo was already pulling up schematics, Gus was eyeing the distance across my ruined lawn, and within minutes they had a plan. It was risky, borderline insane, but it was the only shot. Of course, just as we started trenching cable through the yard, bye-bye Kentucky Blue, here come the flashing lights. Cops, two of them, Miller and Sanchez, one old school, one by the book. They'd been called out, no surprise, by Brenda, who'd told them someone was stealing electricity from the ground. The universe has a sense of humor. I tried to explain hospital code, black lives at stake, but Sanchez looked ready to slap on cuffs for unpermitted trenching until Maria called again. This time her voice was all business. The hospital was down to minutes before they'd have to start triage. "You heard her? I told the cops I'm not making this up. Every second you stall is a second someone's grandmother might not get." That's when the twist happened. Dr. Evans, the hospital administrator herself, showed up, soaked and wild-eyed, begging us to help. Brenda tried to intervene, ranting about noise and bylaws, but Dr. Evans shut her down hard. "Ma'am, my hospital is dying. This man's ridiculous garage is the only hope we've got." And just like that, the dynamic flipped cop stopped caring about the HOA. Brenda was left sputtering, and we got to work. I ran back to the garage, strapped on a headset, and got the update from Leo and Gus. They'd isolated the hospital, but the bus bar was antique and needed a custom adapter. For a few agonizing minutes, Gus hammered away in the rain while Leo and I synchronized the phase dialing and frequencies with the precision of surgeons. When the adapter was finally in, it all came down to a single heavy switch in my panel labeled Apocalypse Only. You know what I mean? This was the moment. Leo counted me down 3, 2, 1, and I threw it. The garage lights dimmed. The batteries screamed, and for a second nothing happened. Then, one by one, windows at St. Jude's flickered to life, a ripple of light and hope across the blacked-out building, followed by cheers from the folks outside, cops, security, even a few neighbors who'd been lurking in the shadows. For the first time all night, I felt the tension melt away. We'd done it. We'd actually saved a hospital with a homemade power grid. Next morning, the storm was gone, the sun was shining, and my yard looked like a war zone. Gus handed me an invoice big enough to buy a new car, but I paid it with a smile. Dr. Evans stopped by, teary-eyed, hugging me, and promising the hospital would fix the lawn, and that by her count, at least a dozen people owed their lives to that garage. Turns out the generator hadn't just failed, it was sabotaged. Officer Miller showed me footage Brenda herself in her signature yellow raincoat hacking at the generator with gardening shears. You cannot make this stuff up. Her war on noise almost killed people. Within an hour, the cops were at Brenda's door. She answered in a silk robe, still convinced she was the real victim, babbling about HOA bylaws and overgrown metal bushes. They arrested her for felony vandalism and reckless endangerment, and for once the whole street watched in silence as their self-appointed queen was led away in handcuffs, still ranting about standards and prize-winning petunias. Weeks passed. My lawn was restored better than before. The local news did a garage hero story, which duck tech companies called the city, offered me awards. I turned them all down. I wasn't interested in fame. Brenda was out on bail, drowning in legal trouble, her HOA days over. The new president, Gary, was so timid he barely dared to email. And then just when life seemed to be returning to normal, another envelope slid under my door, not a violation, but a request. Would I please, pretty please, let them use my garage grid as backup for the annual chili cook-off? They'd even waive my dues. Standing there, letter in hand, I laughed a real deep, cathartic laugh because after all that, the fate of a whole community's bouncy castle depended on the same grid Brenda tried so hard to kill. That's life in Whispering Pines, equal parts madness, miracle, and the kind of irony you just can't invent. So tell me, would you have plugged your house into a hospital if it meant breaking every rule in the book? Or do you side with Brenda? Order over chaos, rules over rescue. Let's hear it. Who was right? Who was wrong? And what would you have done if it was your neighborhood on the line? Drop your thoughts below because I guarantee someone's got a story wilder than mine.